Hampton Court Palace is telling its visitors how to avoid that ULEZ charge in London.
This is actually a fascinating story for all sorts of reasons. It's in all three of the papers this morning. You know, we had the ULEZ charge coming in this week. And, of course, people have been destroying cameras and things. But this comes from Hampton Court Palace, which is actually run by the Historic Palace's charity. What it is that when you approach Hampton Court, you're OK when it comes to the ULEZ charge, but when you leave, you immediately go into it. So they are putting on their website saying, don't turn that way, turn this way, right? I admire them for doing that, you know, because the fact is, Hampton Court Palace, along with other places like Chessington Zoo and places like that, they are caught right in the middle of this outrageous charge, you know, and so they're actually sort of helping people, and I think they provided a public service, I think.
I suppose it's interesting, Nikki, because this isn't like sort of those who are vandalising cameras or anything. This is perfectly legal. It's saying just use this exit, not that one.
Absolutely. I don't really know why everyone's got in such a hoo-ha about it. Oh, actually, because it's not going to bring any money in if Hampton Court Palace, they go around this way and not that way. And I think it's perfectly reasonable for any property that expects people to come and visit to give those instructions, because actually people are remarkably easily put off by things like, you know, how many times in London, certainly I live in London, how many times have I said, oh, you know what, I'm not going to bother because there's a strike on or the road's closed or, you know, it's just too tricky to get there. So I think it's perfectly reasonable. And, you know, Hampton Court Palace is of national importance. It's a beautiful place. It's, you know, its kind of exhibitions are out of this world. And the idea that they would suffer because of ULEZ just seems preposterous, really.
But it does highlight, doesn't it, for those on the outskirts of the ULEZ boundary, especially if you're a small business.
Oh, you know, the anger, I know you've covered it a lot this week on GB News, but the anger about this is just off the charts now, and I'm quite right too. I mean, fact is, you know, it's £12.50. If you don't pay it, the fine is huge. I think it's something like 150 quid pretty quickly. And also, people are not convinced, quite rightly, that this is actually a sincere thing, you know, that this is not about air quality, this is actually about a tax, you know, being put on cars that are considered unsuitable. You know, we've even had the situation, again, which came to light, where the only kind of academic who's actually said air quality is improved is, in fact, someone who gets money from the mayor. He's at Imperial College. I mean,
but of course, what the mayor would say, and what he's been saying all week, is that this only affects 10% of cars. If you drive a classic car, it's not covered. If you drive a car petrol after 2006, it's not covered. Most people will be not affected by the ULEZ expansion.
Well, I think a lot of people, otherwise there wouldn't be such anger. I think businesses are going to be seriously affected. And also, it's just an ongoing war, Tom, really, on the idea of the car. I mean, you know, that's what this is all part of. And if you're not careful, this mayor is going to just suck all the lifeblood out of this city, I think. You know, the Hampton Court story might seem like a small one, but, you know, in a way it's indicative, actually, of the general attitude, which is people do not like this.
Okay, no, Nikki, people don't, but I think what is important to say, Peter, is that, you know, there are so many instances now of children that are really suffering with asthma and respiratory problems because of the quality of the air in London. There are children that have died. You know, these are parents that have campaigned for years about this. And also, let's go back to who introduced this policy. Actually, it was Boris Johnson who wanted to do this, first of all.
Absolutely. No, I didn't. It might well have been. I'm not sort of standing up for, you know, Boris or the Tories or anything on this. What's been fascinating is that, in fact, air quality on the tube, which I use a lot, I don't know whether you do, is actually appalling. Nothing from the mayor about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very valid point. There are air quality issues everywhere.
Because he can't get money from it.
No, but he could have done more to do, you know, he could have raised parking. There are so many other areas he could have gone to if he wanted to just make money. I do think he actually believes in this policy. What I think the problem with it is that he's not selling it properly to people. Instead of saying, I know this really hurts you, I know this is going to hit all of us who use cars, I know it's going to make your business difficult, but we have to do it for the sake of our children. That's how to sell it. That's the whole point of it. It's for people's health.
Look, what about the public health issue?
Yeah, the thing is, when you say, you know, we should care about kids and all the rest of it, I mean, the fact is, look, it's like the smoking. It's a smoking argument. You know, if you really care so much about health, just ban cigarettes. That's what people say. There's a logic to that. He should do that with cars, right? Why he doesn't is because it's a money maker. That's why it is. And similarly with cigarettes, you know, the tax goes straight to the government. It's a form of revenue. That's what this is about. I think you're being way too... I say you're being naive about his motives, actually.
Oh, well, I don't think so. I mean, I have a baby daughter. We live in the outskirts of London.
Yeah.
This policy would positively benefit her health. You know, she's 6 months old. I am already concerned about what air she's breathing in. And I'm not obsessive about it. I'm not like that about my health either. But the point is, if a policy that will only affect 10% of people can be brought in that will positively stop her having respiratory problems and to hundreds and thousands of children around, you know, often the poorest children in London, let's be really honest about that.
Although, let's be honest about the 10% as well, because it's not the 10% of richest or most expensive cars, it's the 10% of perhaps cheapest, oldest cars.
No, but the issue of that, what they cost isn't the matter. It's the fact that they're polluting. If the more expensive cars were polluting, well, then go after those. But it just so happens that they're not. So, you know, the really unfortunate thing about climate change and getting on top of the climate crisis is that all of us will have to make some sacrifices.
Do you
now,
think
what people don't like, and I absolutely agree with this, what I do not like is the fact that governments go after the smallest people. They go after, they make us take on the burden of sacrifices when, you know, businesses and factories and, you know, munitions...
But Nikki, isn't it the case... Hang on, hold on, Peter and Nikki, because isn't it the case that if you go after factories... then they put their prices up. That affects little people as well. Is it not the case that when Rishi Sunak or Sir Keir Starmer stands up there and says, we're going to have a green industrial revolution and everyone's going to be better off for it, they're not telling the whole truth. Everyone's going to pay a price.
The point is, we'll be dead if we don't do this. We'll be dead anyway. I mean, I'll be dead anyway sooner than this happens. But the point is, we will literally wipe out the human race if we do not get control of the climate crisis.
This is catastrophe talking, which is just quite ridiculous, right?
Well, it's not, Peter.
No,
it's
it is
so scientifically solid that we are hurtling towards.
Nikki,
look at the fires that we've just had in Europe and the livelihoods of people that are
Let me finish. You basically said then, why do governments pick on the small people? That is exactly what Khan is doing. I mean, you're contradicting yourself.
I'm not contradicting
exactly
myself.
what
I'm
he's
saying
doing. If you've got an older or cheaper car,
understand.
and that includes many, say, like older people, for example, who maybe have bought a car for retirement, things like that.
He's not picking on them.
Peter and Nikki, we have run to the end of the segment. We will pick this up later in the show because, my goodness, it has got feisty. And thank you so much for being with us here on Britain's Newsroom.